Welcome to Free Conference. Please enter your access code or PIN followed by the pound sign. You will now enter the conference. Muted. Unmuted.
Hey, Levi. Hello?
Hello there.
Hey, I'm recording from my phone on the 817, and then I had to use my laptop at the same time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Can you hear me, Gabe?
Yeah, hey, Frank, what's up?
Hey, I'm wondering where Levi's at.
Oh, shucks. I thought that was Levi. I couldn't barely hear the voice. Shucks. Who's that?
No, this is Jason, Gabe.
Jason?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Gabe. Frank, how you guys doing?
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, Levi said he was able to. He was going to do the call today, so.
Yeah, it's only 7:03.
Wow.
Sometimes people get in late.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to put my phone down as it records, and I'm going to listen through my laptop. So.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait a few more minutes for Levi to show up, and if not, I'll go ahead and get started here in a few minutes.
Is it just the three of us right now?
Oh no, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including myself.
Good.
So I've got the PowerPoint presentation here in front of me, so just in case. Okay, normally what we do is we have a presentation, and if you have a question or you want to make a comment, push *2, I believe, and that will be *2, and that's to raise or lower your hand. And we're gonna give them a few more minutes here. It's just barely after 7, so we'll give them a few more minutes here. Here he is. He's coming on right now. He's just running a little behind.
Welcome, Levi.
I think he's dialing in right now, so we'll be getting underway here shortly. Levi. Levi, I can't hear you for some reason.
Levi still having problems with his mic or?
I don't know. Yeah, he's trying to get his audio to work right now.
Okay.
It'll just be a second here.
I know sometimes the guys, we do get technical difficulties on this.
Yeah, it just take him a second here.
Hello, hello, hello.
There he is. Hello, Levi.
All right.
Hi.
Some stupid setting got changed again. Daggone technology. All right. Sorry for making everybody wait. We're about 10 minutes after now. I mean, I usually would wait a little while to start the presentation anyway. So, you know, hopefully everything worked out good. It looks like somebody just popped in right now. So anyway, I hope we have some new people on the call. I recognize a lot of the numbers that are up here right now. But I guess without further ado, I will begin doing the presentation, the introductory presentation. This is, you know, what we call maybe level 0 introductory presentation to the People's Awareness Coalition and what is our goal and how we go about achieving our goal. We're going to talk about the strategy of the People's Awareness Coalition and hopefully give people some information to better understand our process. So first of all, we call ourselves PAC, stands for People's Awareness Coalition. The definitions, I guess, of that, or like reading a little bit more into that title, we mean people as in everyone in America, awareness as in political and constitutional understanding, and coalition meaning a lawful group of nationals working together. And by nationals, I mean people that have corrected their status and are have declared their allegiance to one of the many states as opposed to the federal government. So the purpose of People's Awareness Coalition, also known as PAC, is an educational tool to get Americans up to speed on the current condition of the government. We identify the problems, but more importantly, we identify a remedy that we that has been developed by L.B. Bork in the writing of the Red Amendment, which exposes the 14th Amendment. We also refer to the book as TRA. So by working together with PAC, we will effectively help each other implement the remedy in our own lives. And we will get into exactly what is the remedy a little bit later on in the presentation. So the actual mission statement that appears in the book goes as follows. The People's Awareness Coalition discerns that vigilance and an understanding of the law are paramount to the preservation of liberty. As a result, the coalition commits to increasing Americans' awareness of the designed legal fraud perpetrated against them and their countries, and resolves to instruct people of America in the appropriate historical facts and law. And what we mean by countries in this paragraph here is actually the states. The many states actually are countries in a legal sense, because they all have a constitution, a separate constitution, and they all have formed a union based on free association with one another. The ultimate goal of the coalition is to reestablish the American Union's lawful republican governmental system as set forth by the organic Constitution. Coalition members are therefore patriotically motivated in support of liberty and firmly believe that wars and rebellions are the two most destructive diseases of society, and hence the coalition resolves to accomplish its goals in a political and peaceful manner. We don't focus on things like advocating for prepping, advocating for buying armaments and stockpiling ammunition and all that stuff. If you want to do that kind of stuff, that's fine. But our remedy is an administrative one, and it's basically done using law and using a series of notifications, and is peaceful in nature. We're not antagonists, and we basically kind of say to the federal government, you go your way, we'll go ours. So what's the problem? In order to experience less anxiety about a complex and troubling subject, it's important to better understand that subject. That's why we're here. We're here to gain powerful knowledge that will help us work together to correct these fundamental problems. The goal throughout this presentation and throughout your interaction with the people in People's Awareness Coalition is to answer questions and provide information and tools that you'll need to achieve a lawful remedy. One thing that I like to say on all these calls is that People's Awareness Coalition wants to teach men to fish, not to give people fish. So, you can buy certain services, you can buy the process and everything, but prerequisites to getting into the higher levels of the group are self-study and really understanding the information that's in the book, the Red Amendment, and other documents and materials such as the Communist Manifesto, your state's constitution prior to Reconstruction, and other such materials. We talk about this kind of stuff and the content of these documents and things often. So where do we begin with just an introductory sort of crash course into how People's Awareness Coalition works and what's our strategy? Okay, so one of the main focuses in the book is really mincing down and examining the nuances of the definitions of certain words in law. So some of those words are words like status, words like citizen, power, the order of nature, rights, privileges, so on and so on and so on. There's tons and tons and tons of definitions and words that are defined, in law in the book, and they're gone over extensively and examined so that you can see that the verbiage and the words and the legalese of the different laws that we are focused on, you really need to mince down and really look at exactly what they mean, because what you understand as being one word that's written in a law is totally different than what they mean when they write it. So the first one and the most important one is the word status. That is the focus of what People's Awareness Coalition does. We change our status. And so in order to really understand what status is, let's look at the definition. Status is defined in legal dictionary as the legal standing or position of a person as determined by his membership in some class of persons, legally enjoying certain rights or subject to certain limitations and conditions. So some examples are liberty or servitude, marriage or celibacy, infancy, and majority. And with regard to what People's Awareness Coalition does, the most important one is citizen of the federal government or national of a state. Those are two different statuses, and we aim to help people correct their status from being a federal citizen to being a national of a state. So we'll go on about that a little bit later on. Let's look at what citizen exactly means. And if you want to entertain a fun exercise, you can go on to a thesaurus online and you can look up citizen and you can look up some synonyms for citizen, and you will see that subject and slave are among them. So a citizen is a person that owes allegiance to a government and is protected by it, presumably, not abused by it. So one interesting quote that kind of goes and maybe shows what maybe the intention of our government is a quote by Abraham Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address: "Government of the people, by the people, and for the people." So you're led to believe that means that you're among those people, but some people would beg to differ in that. Some people think they're just talking about the higher class, the political class. But it is our belief within the People's Awareness Coalition that the citizen bears responsibility for the actions of the government. After all, they are part of what constitutes the government. The people make up the government, obviously. By their contributions and acquiescence, they empower the systems that form. Taking this principle into account, we've determined that invoking the inherent right to remove oneself from an objectionable system is the single most effective way of disempowering it. So rather than going out and protesting, rather than threatening to commit violent acts against the government while you are a citizen, rather than doing any of that stuff, we want to just go ahead and take our little dip of power away from the government. As an individual, you don't really feel that you have much power, especially when you look at the collectivist nature of our government. But it is within your power as an individual to leave a system that you disagree with. There's no way that they can hold you in that, because governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed. That's a very famous quote, too, that we'll go over again very soon. So we're talking about disempowering the federal government. We're not abolitionists, but we believe in limited government. We believe that the government has stepped outside of its limited role that the founders intended, and we would like to try and bring it back into a more limited capacity and bring more autonomy back into the states, more sovereignty. So what we mean by power is just the ability to control. For example, a parent should have power over the child, not the child having power over the parent. I use this analogy every time we do this call because the way that the system views you is that of a child, because they view you as being incompetent mentally to make good, sound decisions for yourself. That's why they take it upon themselves, they, as in the hierarchy enslaving you, they take it upon themselves to make some decisions for you. They also maintain the illusion that you are actually free and experiencing true liberty. but you're not. So the parent should have power over the child, not a child having power over the parent. Another way of putting that phrase is the creation can never be more powerful than the creator, which is a very famous maxim. It's very well-known and well-used maxim. And basically by maxim, I mean a certain phrase that is considered to be true by most, if not all, people. So power, a little bit more on power. Where does government's legitimate power come from? As I said a little bit earlier, governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed. That is taken from the Declaration of Independence. So simply put, a legitimate government gets its legitimate power from consent. Consent can be taken away at the discretion of the person that's expected to be giving it. Like, no means no, the famous, anti-date rape slogan. So, much like the food chain, power in legal systems and in nature just kind of form natural systems the way that they kind of fall together. This system is called the order of nature, and we have here another ancient maxim that's considered to be a universal truth, that the law regards the order of nature. And a little bit more on what is the order of nature exactly. The order of nature is the hierarchy of power, the correct way that power is supposed to flow. And if we look back through time, before the Constitution was written, back to the time of Hammurabi, back to the time of the ancient Greeks, back in ancient law, in common law, and ancient civilizations considered the following to be the true order of nature. They believed that God was the almighty sovereign and that God empowered individuals who then form groups or states through free association by virtue of where they may live geographically or what language they speak, what tribe they were born into, so on and so forth. And then lastly, with regard to our system, would be the federal government, because the federal government, in fact, is a conglomeration of groups, which would basically put it at the end of the power structure. This system is called individualism, and this is where the rights and the happiness of the individual are considered more important than the collective. We would like to see individualism thrive, grow, become strong again. We would like to see collectivism kind of fall away and wither and maybe take its place, take its rightful place a little bit further down, maybe leaving collectivism as an option for maybe weaker people that need an authority over them, irresponsible people that need that sort of thing. So all these concepts add up to what make up your rights. And your rights are not given to you by the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights actually just limits what the government can do in black and white. Your rights are innumerable. There are so many of them, we couldn't start to write them all down. The Bill of Rights does not give you your rights. The government doesn't obey the Bill of Rights at this point anyway. Another famous quote that we'll examine right now is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Some people would change out the pursuit of happiness with property, but that is also, that's a side subject, and that quote is taken from the Declaration of Independence also. So one of the terms that we'll look at closely in that phrase is unalienable and also rights. So unalienable means impossible to take away or give up permanently. If we think about that, where have our rights gone? If we seem to be experiencing infringement on our rights, where have they gone? They're not gone. They are just not being enforced. Your rights cannot be taken away. and they cannot be given up permanently, but you can decide not to value them and not to protect them. In essence, you can give them up voluntarily, but they're always there waiting for you to wake up. And you can do this. This is what People's Awareness Coalition is all about. It's about telling people how to do this, which is what we'll get into very shortly. This is where we begin to talk about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was one of the three main Reconstruction era amendments. Reconstruction is a very appropriate term to use for this era because the government was fundamentally reconstructed. The government was essentially, the power structure was turned around 180 degrees, and for the first time ever, this amendment, the 14th Amendment, created a status called federal citizen of the United States. Prior to this, all individuals were members of their states. So you can imagine that all the states really enjoyed a high level of autonomy because all of the people that were loyal to those states were willing to fight for their rights, and they were willing to, maybe figuratively, metaphorically, or whatever, stand up, fight, whatever, maybe not always physically. So all the people were members of their states before the 14th Amendment was written. The 14th Amendment then superimposed or maybe kind of blanketed over everybody that was born thereafter with a status called United States citizen. And that was it created a dual citizenship. It says so right in the law itself. And the primary citizenship is to the federal government, to the United States. And the secondary, the latter, I guess, is to your state, which basically is practically meaningless as long as you're operating under the federal citizenship status. It doesn't really much matter which state you belong to. So a little bit further down in that law, the 14th Amendment, which again is gone over extensively in the book The Red Amendment by L.B. Bork, which can be found at redamendment.net. A little bit further down in that law, the phrase privileges and immunities appears as opposed to rights, in lieu of rights being used in that phrase. This is important to understand because when you look at the definition of privileges and immunities, you see that privileges and immunities are granted and they can be changed or suspended or ignored at any time based on the whims and the arbitration of the system that gave them to you, the government that gave them to you, as opposed to rights, which are given to you by God and can't be taken away against your total consent. So that is the really big, major, important thing that's to understand about the 14th Amendment. It created federal citizenship, and it basically emulates de jure rights with a sort of de facto privileges and immunities that are amendable anytime. This is how they maintain the illusion of liberty, or they maintain the illusion of freedom here in the United States, because these privileges and immunities emulate rights, and they actually tend to kind of make judgments and everything so that they can tout about how they've upheld the Constitution and everything, even though for all intents and purposes the Constitution is completely dead and dissolved and gone. The amendment ignores the order of nature, as also known as government de jure, which means of nature, and replaces it with man's law, known as government de facto, means of fact. So just because a bunch of bureaucrats in Washington said it needs to be so, now that's the way we do things now, versus God bestowing rights on you and then basically people following common law, which kind of basically boils down to if there's no victim, there's no crime. The government can criminalize a plant. The government can criminalize, you using your property the way you would like to, maybe building something on your property that you would like, and so on and so on. and the government can actually issue permits and everything for you to operate in a normal capacity, such as traveling around on public highways and such. So the way that the Reconstruction era amendment, 14th Amendment, the way that it has flipped the order of nature around is that now the federal government is the highest power. The federal government then allows states to do things. It can dictate to the states how they maintain their own internal affairs and such, which is a direct violation of the 10th Amendment. And then the states then cede some power to individuals. Individuals then have to jump through all sorts of hoops and everything, and they have a direct relationship with the federal government. And they basically have the federal government and the states to deal with in terms of someone telling them what to do. And then God is deleted from this equation. This is known as collectivism. It's what communism and socialism are based on. Those ideologies are collectivist ideologies. And this is summed up as where the group is considered more important than the happiness and well-being of an individual, where it's thought that somebody hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, a bunch of men in suits in a bureaucratic roundtable get to decide what is best for rural farmers in Michigan or Illinois or wherever. Political power comes from groups of people that share the same status. So what it comes down to is the states seem to have no power because all the people in the states are federal citizens. So in order to correct this, that's what People's Awareness Coalition does, is offers a administrative service of a series of mailings that happen that are notices of your intent to renounce your citizenship, essentially. And this is definitely something that takes a lot of thought and consideration and a lot of research and maybe a lot of questions. And that's what we're here for as people that are involved with People's Awareness Coalition, the people that make up People's Awareness Coalition being the actual nationals that have gone through with the process. And then everyone else around the periphery are the alliance, the PAC Alliance. There are many, many people in the PAC Alliance, very good people that we talk with. I actually have gone through with the process, and so I am a national of the state of Virginia. I'm actually the only one that I know of in Virginia that's done this, although I don't think that I am the only one. I'm just the only one I know of. But political power, again, comes from groups of people that share the same status. So when the people within the states start to really figure out what we are doing here and they see the merits of what we have going on, then hopefully we'll be able to change the direction of this government by all sharing the same status and having allegiance to our state, and therefore being able to have some real say in what is going on. So a state national or a national of a state, these are different synonyms for the same thing. That's what you become when you're basically living under common law after going through the process with PAC, with People's Awareness Coalition. Like I said, before Reconstruction, this is the way things were. People were members of their state. It's not something that's just made up. This is the way it was. It's no longer like that now. We would like to go back a little bit in time to get back to something like that. Of course, we don't want everything from that era, but we understand that we believe that was something that they had going that was really very good thing. So the difference may be a little bit of contrast between a state national and a federal citizen. A state national stands on God-given unalienable rights and the order of nature and understands the law and acts to protect their rights. And a federal citizen stands on government-granted privileges and hopes that they're just not taken away, changed, or suspended for any arbitrary reason, and often they don't take the time to understand law, and therefore they're just at the mercy of the system that basically is a parasite. So how do we fix it? We fix it by, the best way we see as fixing the current situation is to bring the power back into the states. This is how it was intended by the founders. By correcting your status to that of a state national, this means that pledging allegiance to a state, this means pledging allegiance to a state, thereby bringing political power back to the states and bringing the federal government back into its intended limited function. People's Awareness Coalition is here to provide the remedy, but we need your help. It's been the mission of PAC since 1998 to bring proper constitutional education and political awareness to all Americans. However, in time it was realized that most Americans are not quite ready for one reason or another. Maybe they're not ready because they have contracts that need to be addressed, contracts that need to be gotten out of, dissolved, whatever you want to call it. Maybe they're not mentally, ready to understand it. Or maybe they're just not, they just don't want that level of responsibility. That's why I am not for anarchy or the dissolution of the federal government, because I do understand that there are people that really need these structures. Some people would rather not. Some people would rather be able to just be left alone. And I think that that isn't unreasonable. So, since most people just can't jump right into doing the process, I was lucky because I work for myself and I don't really have any huge system debts. I actually don't have any debts right now to the system, and so I was able to go right through with the process. But that's just not the case with everybody. So what we have now is the People's Awareness Coalition and the PAC Alliance. The PAC Alliance, like I said before, is everybody that is interested in the information, interested in helping share the message, interested in helping out with our goal of spreading the word and bringing more people into the fold. So People's Awareness Coalition is always looking for good people to help move the vision forward. Those people who are looking to free America from its deception and to assist those who truly want freedom. So one thing, there's a bunch of different things you can do. You could volunteer your time. You could donate some money. You could consider buying some books. You could consider buying many copies of the book. Once you read it, maybe you'll want to share it with a friend and have a study buddy, or you'll want to show it to somebody that, somebody that you trust that gives advice. See if they've ever heard about anything like this. See if they would like to analyze the situation with you. And obviously, you can always come on to a call like this and ask any sort of question you want. By the way, you can press *2 anytime on your phone if you want to raise your hand and ask a question, and I'll pause and take a question. You can find a lot of people on Facebook that are pretty active. You can also go on to the forums. That would be pacgroups.us. That's one of the that's the forum, or maybe it's pacgroups.us/forum. You can also go to redamendment.net, like I said before, to get your copy of the book. I also am selling copies of the book that I have that are outdated. They're 2012 version, and they are very similar to the 2016 version. The 2016 version has had some things added into it, like a glossary and probably some other footnotes and things. I have not gotten myself a copy of the 2016 version, so I don't know exactly what all the differences are. But you can contact me if you would like to get a book for $30 as opposed to $60. You can contact me at my email, which is fishboneglasswork@gmail.com. If you want to hear that again, you can just press *2 and raise your hand, and I'll tell you again. Some of the other sites that you can go to visit to see different PAC-related material and white papers and things that you can read, which are white papers basically meaning supplementary materials that are kind of extraneous topics and things that are outside of the Red Amendment that are directly addressed in the book but are very relevant, you can go to pacinlaw.us. That's PACINLAW @US or .us. Sorry. And and then there's also another interesting one called deprogram.us/deprogramming. That's kind of like a fun introductory presentation also, but it's an individual thing that you can do, and it probably takes about half an hour, 45 minutes or so to go through. So, essentially, PAC is here to help. That's what we want to help everybody to understand what our mission is and to start to help spread our mission within the states and start building legal study groups in all the states. And, eventually it's our hope that PAC basically becomes obsolete as a group because everyone will begin to really know exactly what we're all about. And then we won't really have to do the introductory call because we will be really active within the states and within our own communities. And, hopefully people will start to understand our message, given that their education most certainly has not included the option or the choice that you don't have to basically live under a government that you disagree with morally. So People's Awareness Coalition has released a lot of information that can be found, again, at pacinlaw.us in the form of white papers. And you can start your educational journey there with the assistance and consultation of PAC members at our Facebook group, which is Official PAC Alliance, and also at the pacgroups.us. If you want to go on to the forum and sign up, then, we really are looking for people to start really being active on there. And hopefully it won't take too long to get that site really buzzing with a lot of activity and stuff over there. I'm seeing that I think Frank probably put this up. It's a couple of URLs. One of them is pacinlaw.us/pdf/deprogramming_sequence.pdf. That's kind of long. If anybody wants to know what that is, again, just raise your hand and I'll say it a little bit slower. Then the other one was pacgroups.us/groups/1/ and I'm guessing that's level 1 forum.
Yeah,
and,
that's for the level 1 people that have already purchased the Red Amendment and have that copy and they're reading it. They can go to that link right there and sign up for that group, and there's quite a bunch of supplemental material that can be accessed on that level.
Yeah, and what we mean by the levels also too, I mentioned in the beginning of the call that I consider this kind of level 0 because it's introductory. We're talking to people that maybe have never heard about PAC, and so I'm here to kind of give a crash course explanation about exactly what we're doing. Level 1 we consider to be the self-study level, and that means getting the book and other materials and just really reading and being able to understand so that you can have really have meaningful conversations on the topic when you get onto Level 1 forum or when you visit the PAC Alliance on Facebook. And then Level 2 is going to be deeper understanding, and we're constructing all this stuff as we speak. And then we've got other levels which, basically lead you into and kind of they prepare you for your eventual status correction of your own. So even if you're not in a position, though, to change your status, you can assist the people that are, and you can volunteer your time to assist with different projects. And you will just be able to go to bed at night feeling good that you are trying to contribute to a better future for everyone. Again, if you're ready to learn more, you can access the best information on the subject by actually getting a copy of the Red Amendment from redamendment.net or from myself over email. And that basically concludes the presentation itself. You can press *2 anytime to raise your hand. and, give a comment, or question, or anything like that.
I wanted to add this one thing, Levi, that this www.deprogram.us/deprogramming is a real good informational journey through kind of what you have presented here, although in a little bit more detail with more footnotes and sources where this material has come from, or it's originated from. Now, if you got about an hour, it's a real neat presentation. The other one you had mentioned, the deprogramming.us deprogramming_sequence.pdf, is if you just want to just read it. It's in a text format. It's basically the same presentation, but you can do it, you can read it, print it out, and read it at your leisure. The other way is actually on the computer. It's an interactive type presentation, which is, I just wanted to encourage you, if you haven't gone there, to go there, because it's real helpful. It kind of fills in a lot of blanks.
Yeah, that's great. Those are really great suggestions. I actually haven't looked at the PDF version, but I did go through the deprogramming sequence actually a few years ago, before I had ever talked to L.B. Bork or actually even gotten the book. It was a pretty interesting experience, and it definitely captivated me and made me really interested in getting the book. From there, I got the book, and then it took me some time to read through it because it is extremely dense, and it is extremely packed with information, and it takes a little bit of time to digest because you have to sort of unlearn a lot of things that you were taught going through public school, for me anyway.
Yeah, that's the programming.
Right, exactly. So, I definitely would urge everybody to go ahead and take a look at those things, even just for fun, to go click right through, and you can see, like Frank said, it's pretty much an introductory thing, just like I went through, but with a ton of more information that you can pause the sequence and open up a different browser window or something and basically cross-check any and every little piece of information that's in there, and you'll see that it is all completely true. There's nothing that's just made up. There's not a lot of conjecture or anything. It's all laid right out there for you to see.
And those footnotes that are throughout it are from the source of where they got the whatever document or whatever law, quoted in law, or a law definition, word definition, and it plays on the what those words meant when they were written, not today's meanings of those words. So right. it gives it a historical basis that validates what's going on.
All right, we do have a hand up, so let's go ahead and take this question or comment here. Hello, would you like to say your name and your question or comment, please?
Yeah, this is Alan.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Levi. I think it would be good if we got new callers on the line to expand upon what it means to reside somewhere versus being domiciled. There is a huge misunderstanding of what residence means versus what domicile is.
Right.
And one of the reasons why people do not have power is because they don't own private property any longer. So, from that point, you can mute me, and let's have a little discussion about that, Levi.
Okay, sure. I'll leave you unmuted in case you want to interject at any point because it was something that you brought up. But to get down to the bottom of it, resident is somebody that is, it's implied that you are not from the area that you are living in, that you do not hold a birthright to that place because you are not from that place. You just happen to be living in that place. Domiciled implies that you are from that place and that you do have a birthright to that place and that you can't be deported or whatever from being there. And so by the way that they phrase a lot of the contracts and everything, they say, you know, this is only open to United States residents, or this is only open to Virginia residents, or, you know, when you're getting a license in one of the many states, it'll say, are you a resident of this state? And so by saying yes, you are basically saying, I don't really belong here, I'm not from here, but I do live here. and that isn't true in a lot of people's cases. Especially if you are not a citizen of the United States, you'll understand what the difference between domiciled and resident means. So, essentially, okay, go ahead.
Let me stop you right there, Levi, and bring up a very important point. And this is why every bank contract on all properties liened against claim that you are a tenant on your property.
Yes.
So I have a contract with my bank that says that I'm a tenant in my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and tenancy implies that they own it and that you're just renting it.
That's right. That all ties into 14th Amendment residence.
Right. They are the landlord under the feudal system, and you pay in your homage of taxes is your rent. You can go do whatever you want with that property. You can borrow against it. You can build on it, as long as you comply with the codes and ordinances that are supplied to you, being as you are part of that de facto system.
Well, they're exposing themselves further, Frank. In this week, we found that a Texas farmer got sued for $2.8 million for plowing his field. So this stuff is getting real concerning land at this point and citizenship to the federal government.
Right, and by correcting our status, it gives us standing to take them to task over this just huge fraud. Is what it is. It's a huge fraud. It's the same thing as trying to recover any Social Security monies or that type of thing you've paid in, because if you have the status, you can take them to task, and if there's enough of us doing this, they'll have to relinquish, because it is based on fraud. The whole thing is based on fraud. But as 14th Amendment citizens, we've agreed to live in play in their sandbox, so to speak. So we're subject to their jurisdiction because of that.
Exactly. And the mere fact that we're mere tenants on our own property, in our own houses. So according to the manifesto, we are paying rents to the state is what we're doing.
Exactly. It goes over this property seizures in TRA 7.3.7 covers that. Gabe just posted that up here on the chat thread. And there's a lot of things in TRA. I'm going back through it for the second time. I'm finding things that I guess I didn't see them before, or maybe I did. I just didn't stick well enough. That it's written so you can take it in segments. I'm not sure how y'all read, but I kind of take my time, and sometimes I'll overlap because trying to understand some of these. I've had to get a dictionary and look for these words because I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what they meant. I'm sure some of you that have read it can relate to that.
Yes, exactly. That was my big thing, is that I actually had to have a copy of a few different law dictionaries on my computer that I downloaded just so that I could kind of cross-reference all this stuff from the era, legal dictionaries from the era. So, you really have to take your time and go through and cross-reference things and look up definitions and stuff so that you can really, really unlearn effectively.
Well, and that's the truth, too, because, and that was another reason that I was sought out materials, because I was told that it was this way. And, of course, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. They couldn't explain it to me enough about it. I had to see it with my own eyes so that I could figure out if it was real or not. And apparently it's real. There's no two ways about it. I think it was 6 years of full-time nitty-gritty study, research to create this, and it was all based upon one single article, or a series of articles, actually, that he was writing for when he was in that law group. Gabe just posted this here, footnote, Senate document number 43, Senate resolution number 62, page 9, paragraph 2, April 17th, 1933. The ultimate ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e. law, amounting to mere user, and use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. The property owned is of a resident alien status. It is not of absolute right. The title to land they hold is not that of alloidium. Alloidium is that of absolute and perfect title. De facto land property ownership is in joint title with the government, i.e. the 14th Amendment state. In consequence, taxes must be laid. And so that's the deal, you know. That's like when you go register your car, you know, you're paying them to co-own it with you. You can do what you want with it, of course. You own it, but it gives them the right to just take it whenever they want to.
That's correct, because we do not possess certificates of what is that called?
Manufacturer's certificate of origin.
Certificate of origin, right. We do not possess those. The state does, and they give us an entitlement called a title to our car for its use. But the state actually owns the car.
And the thing is that as a state national, your status changes to that of, you don't have to have that. You don't have to pay homage to the state to register your car. You don't have to drive with a driver's license because you're not driving, you're traveling. There's a lot of other details and whatnot, but there has to be enough people on the same page that's doing it to give us standing. There's a maxim of law, and it's basically, it avails little to know what ought to be done if you do not know how it is to be done. And what that means is, you know, sure, we all know these problems are here. We hear everybody griping about them, you know, all the time. And if you're on Facebook, you probably see a lot of it. But you hear about a lot of it on the news and people talking about this and that. And they don't know how to fix it. How do you fix it? We know there's a problem. Well, it's spelled out in TRA. It gives you that. It's sort of a guidebook for dealing with some of these issues, and it gives you the basis in law, their law that they made up, to put together and remedy the situation. But it takes enough of us. We have to have enough of us that are willing to do this. We have to be able to form unity, and everybody needs to be, you know, that's what it is to be self-governing, is to be accountable and responsible, and be able to take these frauds to task for what they've taken from us and get it back.
Right. And it's too easy to just persecute one loud, obnoxious individual that knows what he's talking about maybe, but is being a little bit too abrasive and doesn't have any backing of like a community around him of people that are doing the same sort of thing.
Right. Because, and that's how they get their stuff done. You know, there's a whole crowd of them. I mean, they're all in on it, in one fashion or another. And a lot of them are good people. Some of them, majority of them are not. But for the most part, you know, the general public at large is, you know, I'd say 95% of the people are pretty honest. They just don't know the way out. There's no guidebook or map, so to speak.
Right, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is to draw that map. We are here kind of like cutting through the, cutting a path right now, getting our hands dirty, so that we can hopefully make it a lot easier for people in the future to do the same thing that we're trying to do.
Right, and it builds that confidence that, hey, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And of course, there's been quite a few of them that claim to have done that, but there's no real, how do we know? And
yeah, they can't pony up any evidence to show that they've done it. They just have a big talk about it.
Right, and so really what it boils down to, it becomes like it's all about them or something, because as long as their needs are met and as long as their things taken care of, but, you know, we're about the unity of taking the state back. I mean, we need to have people to do that. We got to have the numbers, and we got to have the knowledge. People got to have that foundational base of knowledge in the law that nobody else has that. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot of people that say they have it, but really, do you really have it? And again, we don't know because we haven't lived their life, and we don't know if they followed some particular pattern or system for accomplishing this. But PAC has that. That's one thing about PAC that I've noticed is it's got what they say they have.
Right. So that's pretty good though. That's a pretty good question or topic to bring up, Frank, there about that. And then Alan, I appreciate you bringing up the thing about the resident versus domicile. That was good.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand why they do not have domain over their own property any longer, and it's because we're tied into this 14th Amendment citizenship status that reduces us to privileges or immunities, not both. We have either or, and we do not have powers nor rights, and we are reduced to residence on our own private property, which means we are at the behest of the state. That's why all this corporate regulation applies to the individual anymore, and they are dictating through regulation, statutes, and codes, because we have no standing in law as part of that system.
Right. It's like Gabe's posted down here. We're actually at war. It's a silent war. It's a quiet war, and it's a war on paper. You see,
it's called a velvet glove for a reason, Frank.
I'm sorry.
I said it's called a velvet glove for a reason.
Right. And everybody's got to work together to make this happen. So that's what PAC is seeking, and there's a plethora of these white papers, as Levi alluded to earlier, that are kind of, pinpointing certain issues that were well researched, and put in writing so that you can have some basis for, a little bit more backup or a little clearer understanding of what's actually happening and why it's happened, and a little bit of the history about it. But there's a whole boatload of that. There's over 150 of those scattered throughout the PAC website that you just have to get up on there. And also, too, if you have purchased the Red Amendment and you have read it or are reading it, you can go to the groups, pacgroups.us. It'd be pacgroups.us/groups, and there's an open forum. It's a regular fits for anybody pretty much. And then there's also the /1. It'd be pacgroups.us/groups/1, and that'll take you to the level 1. And you just sign up on there, click the terms and all that stuff, and then they'll send you a password. You can get on there, and there's additional materials on that level too. More research materials and other suggested readings that you'll find there.
Yeah. So everyone get over to the forums and, start going through the supplementary materials that are there and asking questions and doing some research and sharing what you find. That's what it's all about.
Okay. If we have any more questions, anybody want to raise their hand? Does anybody want to have a comment they would like to make?
Press *2 if you do. If not, then I guess I'll probably just go ahead and say, this concludes the introductory conference call. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody that came on and that everybody that's been helping lately. And, I'm looking forward to a lot of the things that we're going to accomplish.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Okay, I just unmuted everybody so everybody could say goodbye or good night.
Thank you, Levi.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Levi.
Appreciate everybody. Yeah, have a good evening.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Your line has been disconnected by the moderator. Goodbye.